SJ, welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar.
Hey, Liz Gray, Jaho Jeff Goodos. My name is Liz Gray, and welcome to Mvskoke Radio Presents, the final episode of Mvskoke Women's Takeover here on The Brew. Today's episode is about children and teachers, which we are naming Being the Steady Bow for the Arrow. Jason Salzman is joining me today, and I'm also joined by Nancy Mason. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to have a heavy discussion over the effects we have as parents on our children and balancing out responsibilities. And we're also going to talk about the impending teacher walkout, as well as some clips on opinions of teachers and parents that are going to possibly be affected by it. So.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be I'm asked to be on the show today, and it's a very near and dear subject to my heart. I have two little ones of my own, but just kids in general. I like to volunteer a lot with teams and coaching and everything like that. I always have, so it's very important to me, and I'm honored because being a part of something so cool like Mvskoke Women's Takeover, it's just really neat to see what you've done, Liz, here, you guys both, and it's really cool to be a part of it.
Oh, thank you. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the title, the Being the Steady Bow for the Arrow.
That's cool, by the way.
Thank you.
I don't know anybody that doesn't like bows and arrows. If you don't, then we can't hang out.
But okay, so this title actually stems from a part of a book by Khalil Gibran called The Prophet. I picked this book up as a teenager, and I got to the part on children, and it kind of put an idea of how I wanted to be one day as a parent. So I'm going to read an excerpt from it, and this is where this title comes from. It says, "You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he also loves the bow that is stable."
That was big time.
Yeah. So
is somebody cutting onions in here? I mean, I see why you picked it. That's a great analogy, a fantastic analogy. And it's all about steadiness. Being really just having a grounding. You know what I mean? And a foundation that they have. So I think that's like a perfect analogy, actually.
Right. Well, and stability is a must for a kid.
Right. Absolutely.
So, I mean, parenting has been one of the hardest learning experiences for me.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, I continue to learn every day. Life doesn't care about preconceived notions that you have whenever you're about to have a child, And, I mean, Nancy, you have children, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking when you were reading that, because my son is actually learning to shoot bows with John. And so when you read that excerpt, I was really thinking about how important it is and how I believe as a parent that we do provide that foundation for our children. But then I was thinking about how sometimes the wind affects where that arrow goes and how our kids react to different challenges that they go through. And so being able to have that foundation still gives them that ability to pick themselves back up and go again, or being able to, grieve if they have to grieve with whatever has happened that they weren't successful. And I have a lot of young people that I work with that sometimes they get really discouraged when they don't hit the mark. And so really trying to teach them about, you still have another opportunity. There's another chance. There's other marks that are going to be out there for them. So that was just really, I love this, that you brought that for that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I mean, yeah, it's something that has stuck with me. I mean, I found it as a teen. That was a while back, so, and I
not too long ago.
No, it's not too long ago. But, I mean, like, that's what I wanted to base my parenting off, was like, whenever I have kids, that's what I'm always going to look at whenever I'm having a hard time, because that's just a reminder to be stable. And so, I mean, since this is Mvskoke Women's Takeover, we talked to licensed psychologist Lahoma Schultz about the importance of maternal bonding and its effect on children. Let's talk a little bit about something called the baby blues. Baby blues mood swings are common in women right after delivery of their baby. Women experience symptoms like weepiness for no apparent reason, impatience, irritability, restlessness and insomnia, and mood changes. It is thought to be related to the hormone changes during and after pregnancy, and symptoms usually disappear within a couple of weeks. But what if it's not just the baby blues? What if it is something more?
Postpartum non-psychotic depression is the most common complication of childbearing, and that affects 10 to 15% of women of childbearing age. And these folks are generally the ones that we see in clinical settings. Teenage mothers might have a prevalence rate much higher, and it's estimated to be at 26%. The onset of postpartum non-psychotic depression begins with the first 6 weeks following delivery. If depression continues into the infant's 6th month, then the infant's growth and developmental delays are affected. If the depression lasts to the infant's first year of life, babies may demonstrate some behavioral and emotional dysregulation. And that's where we have the issues with maternal bonding. These mothers are generally more depressed than the ones that just have, quote, the baby blues.
Schultz said there are services offered to those who are struggling to bond with their babies.
The infant needs that maternal bonding. Things that some of us might take for granted, these mothers who are maybe experiencing this type of depression, it's very difficult for them. So we help them learn to bond with their child.
When mothers don't take care of themselves when their child is an infant, it can lead into issues as the child ages.
And this can result in behavior problems and aggression at the preschool stage. Disrupted attachment, self-regulation, trauma, and attachment. One of the most damaging results in children is the chronic inability to modulate emotions, behaviors, and impulses. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the mother had experienced postpartum depression, but in most cases that is true.
Sometimes, postpartum depression is not the key factor for a child's behavior.
It doesn't mean that all the children have a mother who's been depressed and has been maltreated. There are some children that just are born with personalities like that.
All right. Okay, so what did you guys think?
I mean, that's really neat to hear because, you know, for one thing, the fact that we're talking about that subject matter on a radio station finally and having a conversation about that is just miles away from where we were just maybe 10 years ago, where, you know, really in a lot of mental health situations, especially with some that only one gender has to deal with on certain things like that, there can be, you know, misinformation and really just suppression of conversation on it in general. So it's cool to be able to be sitting here and hearing an interview like that, just in general, knowing that it's talked about now. It's there's conversations, and we're having more of an understanding.
Yeah.
That's what I heard. That when I heard it, I was like, we're listening to this on a radio show. That's awesome.
I agree with that. I actually just recently on a sitcom, major sitcom, I saw that they addressed the same issue, and I was really excited about that because people are afraid to talk about mental health. We all think that that's something that should be hidden, and culturally that is something that is scary for us to approach sometimes. And so I think the more that we do say, hey, this is real and this is happening, then people are going to get the help that they need and get connected to services and resources and to help our young people in the long run.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, is resources, getting more information. Like we said, there's so many issues in this country where, and use the term in an inflammatory sense, but where we're very ignorant on things.
Yes.
And we're learning, we're getting more information, and it's becoming more scientific, and just people are getting it. There's a cognizance there that wasn't, as I said, just 10 years ago even. So, I mean, that's really what's leading to more and more research and as Nancy said, most importantly, resources.
Right. And see, I wanted to tackle this and ask about maternal bonding because, I mean, personally, I dealt with a little bit of postpartum depression. I didn't know what it was. I was so young. I was 21 whenever I had my first son. And at first, I thought it was, again, baby blues. They just like, oh, it's
what's
just
going on?
Yeah, why am I so sad?
Right.
I should be so happy. And whenever, you worry about how your kid, like how that affects your kids, and you're like, the struggle to bond. She said that they help people in the clinic to bond. She said, what she said in that interview, stuff we take for granted, about bonding with our child that may come so naturally to some of us can be a struggle for a mother.
Yeah.
And that's also, societal pressures as well.
I wonder, like, when you were going through it, as you said, like, was it something that where you were like very aware of what was going on, or were you like, as far as, oh man, I don't want this to affect my son?
No, I was in complete denial about it. I was in complete denial. I was like, it's just my hormones that's messing me up, and that's it. And I didn't realize until, again, like within the year, it lasted for a long time because I didn't go get help, because I didn't go talk to anyone about it. It manifested a little bit, and I mean, it did affect my son. I could tell, because I tried so hard to bond, and it was a struggle. It was a struggle. First kid, first mom. This one, I had, again, preconceived notions of what parenthood. I was like, I'm going to have this boisterous little kid that's just going to be so athletic, and he's not. He's a little quiet kid who's very sensitive, So I had to learn to adjust. And in parenting, you learn to adjust.
Yeah. And I think that we don't want to admit that something is different about ourselves or our kids even, because we feel like that's wrong, that we've done something or we're responsible for what's going on in ourselves. So
I shouldn't have ate that cottage
Exactly,
cheese.
yeah.
I knew that my son was going to get Asperger's after I ate the cottage cheese.
I had a fear of drinking Mountain Dew because of the caffeine,
It was like whenever I was pregnant, I was just doing everything right. Like I know caffeine. Like if anyone smoked, I wouldn't do it. Like I was trying to do everything right, and stuff still happens.
Yes.
Stuff still happens. So coming from that, I'm going to look at the flip side of maternal bonding and the struggle. I mean, we've talked about helicopter parents. I mean, the term helicopter parent.
Sorry, I'm not near as. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, I'm no Michael Winslow, the police academy guy. He could do it all.
Yeah, there's kind of, I hate to say overbearing. I say overprotective. Lahoma actually talks about it, and I think I have a clip right here of her talking about it and the effects on children.
Is there such a thing as overparenting? Can parents go overboard with the amount of attention they give their children?
You'll get the spoiled kids, as we know, layperson terminology, spoiled. But yes, a lot of mothers become, what do we say? What's the word that, she's just overprotective, And there are a lot of mothers like that. What we've seen is mothers themselves in that way. They're not necessarily suffering from depression, but more anxiety.
There are effects on children in a different way from those children growing up neglected.
These mothers, the anxiety that they might be suffering, it creates a whole other issue for the child, because it can actually create some anxiety for the child because they're learning that from the mother unknowingly. What we see is sometimes we see children who become very dependent. They turn to that parent for everything, and yet a mother like having that kind of anxiety can lead to the child having issues. There might be some deeper issues there, and the mother unknowingly may be creating some deeper issues for the child.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, What do you guys have to say about, helicopter parents and what she said about it?
Well, it's one of those things where there's like a delicate balance, right? You don't want to be absent or where you're not involved at all, but then at the same time you want to check yourself and make sure that you're not overdoing it, as she said, and I think she touched on that as well, that that delicate balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think my mom was probably a helicopter parent.
I think all of our moms.
I felt really sheltered a lot and not being able to do things that my peers were able to do. Like I remember she wouldn't even let me stay at home by myself until I was like 13 years old.
Oh, wow.
Weird, right? Weird.
Yeah.
And so for my own kids, I've been trying to be really careful about not to do that. Like, yes, I'm still scared about them being on their own, but being able to give them that leeway where they can show that they can be responsible and that kind of thing. So finding the balance, like you said, has been, it's hard for every parent, and it is a struggle still. I mean, even with my adult kids now, because my oldest is 23, I still just want to make sure he gets to where he's at, and occasionally I'll call him and say, hey, are you still alive? Because, he hasn't checked in with us and those kind of things. So, but just being able to let them be independent and learn to fly, like we talked about that in that analogy, can be a struggle for a lot of parents. Yeah.
Right. And I think that one of the points that she had in that one is that overprotective parents tend to give their children more anxiety. Yeah. Because overprotective parents tend to have more anxiety. So on the flip side of, depression, let's go into, anxiety and how that affects. She says it in the interview, and I'm not quite sure where, about children really feed off of their mother's emotions, and they tend to mimic that, and it's again a delicate balance on what to do with your kids. And I mean, parenting in general, I mean, we're all parents here, and I mean, Jason, you're the dad in this, and we're talking about mothers, but I mean, you completely understand.
Yes, and for those listening at home, I do have a dad bod, so no. Can't see that through the radio. No, seriously, it's just one of those things where, like, you care, right? You want to care so much and do everything for the children, but you also, like I said, that independence is so vital to their growth. And them maturing at a rate that they're supposed to.
For sure.
Excuse me. And so you don't want to do anything to kind of knock that off the tracks. You kind of just want to be the cog in the wheel. You know what I mean? Like, you just want to be able to facilitate that growth and that maturation and becoming a young child and then a teenager. God forbid. Oh my gosh, you guys. My oldest girl is 10, and you always hear the horror stories, like, oh my gosh, it's coming, her teen years and everything like that. And I'm on the doorstep, like I'm on the welcome mat, but like I can feel the heat, you know what I mean? Like you're feeling the doorknob and you're like, oh, there's a fire in there. Okay, I'm just gonna wait for the fire department to get here. So yeah, gosh, that's a whole nother show.
It's a balance. So Lahoma does talk about this, and she talks about what to do as a parent and how that can affect, and we're going to listen to her right now.
Being the steady bow for your little arrows is all about balance and consistency, according to Schultz.
And it's never really too late. I can't say never. Generally, it isn't too late to implement simple rules, simple consequences. But the parents have to decide on these rules and these consequences together, and they have to be consistent together, And they have to sit the children down and explain to them, give them an example, of what it is they're talking about. And you do this, that's a breaking of the rule. And if you do that, then this is what's going to happen, And they have to parent together, versus one parent saying this and then something happens and the kid knows they can go to another parent and say, well, Mommy said this. Well, it doesn't matter what Mommy said. This is what I'm going to let you get away with.
When parents struggle to find that balance, it can greatly affect the way a child responds in life.
Sometimes in our clinic, we're working with parents of adolescents. We might learn that this is something those parents never did. They never set simple rules, simple consequences. And of course, they weren't consistent in their parenting. It was always like when something happens, then we'll decide what we're going to do. And then they might decide to do something pretty harsh, and then they get a lot of negative feedback from the child.
The 3 F's of parenting are essential in raising a child together.
The first F is firm. Simple rules and consequences for breaking rules should be clearly stated and followed. So whenever a behavior occurs, the child knows that they've done something wrong because they knew ahead of time what would be considered a wrong behavior. The second F is fair. So you want to make sure the consequences are stated in advance so that the child knows what to expect if they break a rule or whatever. The punishment should fit the crime. Harsh punishment is not necessary. Timeout can be effective when it's used consistently every time that a behavior occurs. And then the third F is friendly. Use a friendly but firm communication style. When you let your children know they've behaved inappropriately, and let them know that they will receive the agreed upon consequence. Encourage your child to try to remember what they should do to avoid future consequences.
The feedback's a little long. She kind of talks about stuff. It seems you're like, well, kind of duh, but still, So what did you guys think?
Well, like you said, the 3 F's of parenting is kind of what we were talking about there, and she was firm, fair, friendly. I get that, as she was saying, in both parents being on the same page, kind of, or a lot of households, let's just single parent households, but it remains the same, is that you have to find, again, the key word we're talking about here is balance. But as she said, the punishment fits the crime, everything like that. So you're firm as far as you do set boundaries, you do set restrictions, you do set what I call and tell my youngest doesn't realize it yet, but what I tell my youngest is these are just accountability hurdles that we jump over and responsibility hurdles. And I'm going to give you a little bit more as you get older. And when we jump over that, we get something. So it's not like, it's not something like I go get you a candy bar. It's responsibilities. Right. So a little bit more independence. You'll get to use your iPad after you read tonight if you do these things that I'm asking you, and you start doing. And the key is if you start doing them on your own. Because I want to teach responsibility and I want to teach personal accountability. Yeah. Right. And I think you can do that a lot with discipline. Right. Don't you think so, Nancy? I mean, and that's kind of when people say discipline. A lot of times, a lot of people go, "Oh man," and they think about like a paddling or a grounding or something like immediately negative. Mm-hmm. But if you change the whole mindset of no, this is a chance. This discipline is an opportunity to be faced with it, and also like jump over it and do something about it going forward.
Sure. I think one of the things we always did with our kids, we said to them, this is your opportunity to tell me what happened and like the truth of what happened. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes they would be pretty truthful and tell us what was going on. Sometimes they didn't, it's just normal. But we tried to let them learn that by being truthful and honest, we would be able to understand and respect, like, okay, they made a bad choice. Here's the consequence. It may not be as bad as if they had lied to us also, because that's another thing that we get in trouble for as adults, lying. I think one of the things that struck me about the conversation that Lahoma was talking about there was that with a single parent household where there are kids going between 2 different households or multiple households, how important it is for us to all be on the same page. Right. So if you have an ex or even like a new step parent, everybody has to really communicate so that young person has consistency across the board, so that they can be successful. I think the other thing that struck me too was that in the discipline, we have to remember that every kid is going to respond differently. And
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what works for one kid is not going to work for the next. And I think I learned that we had our nephews stay with us off and on, and things that worked with my children didn't work with my nephews. And so we had to change up kind of our parenting and how we disciplined them and worked with them and tried to teach them too, because they were coming from a different environment. And so really helping them that way.
Yeah, and I mean, kids are different. I know that, again, I told you about my son, how I had these expectations of like, this is what I need to do. But I learned that the punishment that I was doing wasn't working.
Right.
It was actually just like stretching everything out, like he was being more whiny whenever I would be like, you're being punished, but more I had to learn to just be heart to heart, like, listen, this is what's going on. And it seemed like talking to him helped a lot more than punishing him.
Yes.
Like that, if
Yes.
he's acting up, I'm like, you need to take a break. You need to think about this, and you come back whenever you're calmed down. And that's just how I parent him, because like paddling doesn't work for him.
Yeah.
He makes you feel bad,
Yeah.
like how dare you hurt me, because he didn't understand.
Yeah.
Like he never understood, because he's just a different kid.
Yeah.
He's a different kid. My youngest, he knows, he knows whenever he's getting in trouble, and I don't have to do that with him. So, and every kid is different. Every kid is different, and it's adjust and go.
And you know what I think the one of the most difficult things about it, I don't know if you guys agree, but I think is when you start to realize what's happening is there's two, even though that's a small child and you think of him as kind of a baby and not a fully formed adult or whatever, there are two human beings involved in this interaction. And they're going to have their emotions that we just talked about. But as adults, we also have our petty moments of emotion. You know what I mean? And we're
Right.
like, some of us get frustrated easily, and it makes us, crazy, dumb, and do and say things when we're frustrated that afterwards we're almost like, we went over the wave and we look back at how big it was and go, oh my gosh, we're in calm seas now, but look how ridiculous I was just now. Or some of us do that when we get hungry. Bingo me, hand in the air, guilty. And no, I'm just saying, but you get in those situations, and like Liz said, you do have to almost go, okay, let's take stock here of how I'm feeling right now, and maybe I should do what I need to do right now, maybe a little bit later, here in a few minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Get a lap, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
Get a lap. Okay, we'll talk about what you did here in just a few minutes. I'm gonna go to my room and
Have a timeout.
fall on the bed
Right, yeah.
and go, she's just a kid,
Yeah.
she's 10.
Right, not doing stuff out of anger. Anger can get
So,
the best of you.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. So then you go back and you can be like, listen, sit over here with me.
Yeah.
This is what
Have a
happened.
seat.
Yeah. Can you see why I want you to stop doing? And so no, it's you're dealing with two different people. And adults can be very childlike with our emotions, and that's my point is that you have to really watch that, because it can be very, you can go in reverse in a hurry. You can do more harm than good.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was just thinking about all the times that I haven't been so sane to be able to do those 4 F's, and so just been really angry at my kids and yell at them or scream and that kind of thing, and then just reminding myself when I'm finally had my time out and I'm ready, going back and first apologizing to them, hey, I reacted the wrong way, and this is what I should have done, and this is what I need you to know. So as parents, we have to admit also our failures to our
Right,
kids,
yeah.
because that's teaching them another lesson also.
And we do the
Right.
funny little parent apology, like we kind of mosey in the door, arms behind our back, whistling, Hey, remember earlier when I threw that shoe at Trey? No, nobody throws shoes. I was making a joke, but no, you're like, oh, hey, want to go out and go around the block? And she's like, no, Dad, you just got through yelling at me. Like, yeah, but I'm sorry. Let's go for an ice cream.
We're going to take a break here in a second, but I did want to get into something that Lahoma mentioned in her interview that I didn't get a chance to put in, but it's called attachment theory. Mary Ainsworth is the one that kind of presented this, and it's talking about a strong emotional and physical attachment to at least one primary caregiver is critical to personal development. And this is based off of, I think, his name's John, and I don't know if I'm saying this, Bowlby, but he's he did this research. He had this observation of children, and then Mary Ainsworth took that research and conducted his study, and then she conducted research. And so Lahoma was explaining that attachment behavior is behavior manifested during times when a child feels confused or stressed. Basically, how kids respond to stressful situations is related to the attachment they have with their caregivers. So what Lahoma was saying is that if a mother doesn't bond with their child and that attachment from a caregiver is lacking as an infant, then that develops, for them to look for someone else for comfort. But on the flip side with the, overprotective parents, but there are actually some criticisms over that theory. It kind of goes into, it takes a village. There's, they say non-Western cultures a lot. It's more evenly distributed through. And I was thinking about this with Mvskoke culture. If you want to look at it from a Mvskoke culture, and there's multiple references of the mother's brother, that teaches the child, teaches children. And I thought that was really cool, like in that criticism, because if you want to look at it, sometimes, the pressure doesn't have to be all on you as a parent, sometimes you do need help, and again, it takes a village to raise, a child, because I know that for me, I co-parent, with two different people. And so, and even within those two sides are multiple people helping us. So, I mean, I feel like I want to tell people, don't worry about that eye on you that always seems to be on you as a parent, like when are you going to mess up? Is she doing the right thing? And it's like, like, don't worry about it. Yeah. Don't worry about it. As long as your kid's okay, you're fine.
I know that eye you're talking about. It's like that burning eye of fire on Lord of the Rings. What a nerd, by the way. But no, it's like, oh man, am I doing everything right? Does everybody think I'm a good parent? Who cares? Your situation is very much like a fingerprint in that it's yours and yours alone. And as Liz said, sometimes, that facilitates you relying on that village, and sometimes, like in my case, both sets of grandparents, as soon as we have kids, bolt to different states. What were you thinking? No, come back and help us raise these kids. I'm talking to you, Mom. No. We haven't been out in weeks. No. All right, I'll calm down. But no, seriously, it takes a village, like she said. And earlier, I wanted to bring up this point earlier because Liz was like, Nancy, you have kids. And I thought to myself, Nancy has a community of kids. Like, not saying that Nancy has 800 children. I mean,
but almost.
Almost.
Yeah.
You are in a role, and you've taken on a role in a volunteership, and really just and actually your job too. But you've taken on this role of being with so many kids and being yours, basically, that you probably see that more than anybody, that communal taking care of the kids, everybody together, working together.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that I grew up with. Our families definitely... Uncles, I remember my dad taking care of my cousins when their dad died. Like, he was responsible for helping with a lot of things with them. Yeah. And so I grew up with that, and just grew up with knowing I had a lot of positive adults in my life that helped me to get where I am. And so how important that is to not only in our 0 to 3, that's super important to have that attachment to your adults and your caretakers, but also as our young people get older, having a group of mentors that help provide a support system for them for all kinds of things that they have to learn, because we can't do it all alone. We have to have other people in our lives, and I'm constantly looking for my kids, like, who are their other people? Because I know they have other people, and making sure that they have those connections too, because they aren't going to get it all from me as a parent.
You look in our tribe, and there's so many different examples too. That's an exciting thing too, is that this time you see the pageant committee in itself, and what they're doing with the retreats and stuff like that, and also the Sons of Mvskoke. I think that is so cool. The other day I saw teaching the kids how to, the boys, how to, change the tires and stuff like that. I mean, it's really neat to see the different groups also pulling in together and the community going, let's do this for the kids.
Yeah, and I think we've gotten away a lot because we have a lot of single parent households that we don't have that communal feel as much as we used to, and so it's important to have that other pieces in the village to help us with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break real quick, and then we're going to come back and talk about teachers.
All right.
Hear that? That's the sound of hope being killed by meth. Methamphetamine use is causing huge problems in our community. Hear that? That's the sound of something you can do about it. Events like rodeo, res ball, and family time can help keep kids away from meth.
Talk to your kids. Keep our culture alive. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Learn more at ncai.org.
Who am I? Am I native? I don't want people assuming things because I'm Indian. I just want to be me. But how do I live in two worlds? Some guys just check out by doing meth. But that ain't for me. Because I see my family, my friends, my drum making, my future. There are a lot of cool things about being who I am. And meth isn't one of them.
Learn more at ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Okay, we're back. We're going to get into this subject that is really, it is affecting us all.
It's nationwide now. You got CNN, New York Times, on and on and on, focusing on Oklahoma. And it's being called, and I think appropriately, the education crisis. And it took a long time to get here. And how long is it going to take to climb out of it? And that's what we're looking at now. And we got a lot of people that want it fixed quickly. And that's tough because it's taken a long time, as I said, to get it this bad.
Yeah.
It's taken years and years of misappropriation and really misplacing our priorities in Oklahoma because education has been put low. And I think that that's why we're here.
Right, and let's just in case people don't know about what we're talking about right now, we're talking about this impending teacher walkout.
Yes.
It's coming up. What date is that?
April 2nd.
April 2nd. Mm-hmm. They're waiting for legislation, something.
Right.
They're looking for the right answer for our teacher salaries because the teacher salaries have been an issue for years now. Yes. I do believe the last thing that I remember is coming up was the state question 779, which was the 1% tax increase that they wanted to put into education, and that failed. And I know that there was a lot of people that were upset about that, but I think that on that side, there were two sides of that. There were people that were like, we need this raise for teachers because teachers are buying their own school supplies for their classrooms. We have old books that are, I saw my algebra book from whenever I graduated in 2008. I saw my niece had the same Algebra 2 book as I did.
God, 2008, what a dinosaur.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying like a 10-year-old textbook.
Yeah.
A 10-year-old textbook. And there is a problem. There's an issue, and I think these teachers are just fed up with it.
Yep.
So they're looking to do something. Jason, you attended the discussion. If you want to talk about that, and
sure.
I think you have something for that.
Yeah, absolutely. We a close community here in Altamoggy County. Morris Schools had recently had a school board meeting that they invited all of the community to, and they thankfully invited Mvskoke Media as well in to come and see one of our closest to the capital city school districts that has many, many Creek students. So relevant to us for sure, but also just in general education. So we went to the school board meeting where they would consider a resolution to support the teachers in the walkout from the school board on down. And so we went to the meeting and were able to get some thoughts. And I want to share this first one. This is from Dr. Chris Karch. He is the superintendent at Morris Public Schools.
So we've got to take a stand. We want, and I'm speaking on behalf of our teachers who I've met with twice in the last couple of weeks, we want to stand arm in arm with the others in Oklahoma that it's time. They desperately want to give our kids all they deserve and more, and we just want you, the Morris School community, to stand with us. That's important. We don't want to go at this alone. If we do this, And we do it as a school community, and I'm including, that's our parents, that's our community leaders, that's our kids, that's our teachers, our support staff, that's everybody in Morris. If we do this together, I truly believe that we will come out, no matter what the outcome is in Oklahoma City, we'll come out better in Morris, Oklahoma. We'll come out forever changed, and that's going to be our success.
All right.
Okay,
You know,
so-
sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No. I just those were his, kind of blanket opening comments, and it was just to basically go over what they're facing, how they feel about it, and the support that they're wanting from the community. And that was really the theme of his comments was these teachers are doing this for the students. He wanted the crowd assembled there to know what they're dealing with, and then, please just be behind us. And so they opened it up for discussion from parents or anybody else wanting to talk. I thought it was really cool. As we came in, they had a sheet where you can, people could sign up or whatever, and they just called them up one by one. It was, and it was like gold, because there was a lot of people that had a lot of good things to say. And for me, as a journalist, when you're putting a story together and you go, man, I've got something from every piece of this. I've got a parent, I've got an administrator, I've got a teacher that's in the fight right there with these kids every day. So they then asked parents to come up, and this was a comment from a parent, and I think he makes a great analogy in these comments, which is how sort of what's lost in all this is what this senseless bickering and back and forth when nothing's really being accomplished is doing to the actual school, the students, everything like that. So this was a parent. His name is Mark Coots. He's with the Bixby Fire Department, but he's also a parent of a Morris student, and he's married to a Morris teacher. And I thought this comments and this analogy he gave was very appropriate.
As Dr. Karch was talking about with the AP classes, not being able to provide those, not having chemistry, not having physiology and anatomy, not having those science courses. I would like to say that she's prepared, but I don't feel like she is, and that scares me. But also, I'm going to use an analogy that a high school senior at Broken Arrow used last night at their board meeting. It's kind of like two bulls that are fighting in a pasture. And I know many of you have seen bulls fighting in a pasture. They'll fight and they'll fight and they'll fight, and the only thing that gets accomplished is the ground gets tore up. The grass gets trampled down. The ground is tore up. The bulls quit fighting. Want to win this time, want to win the next time. Well, our school is the ground. And the bulls are up in Oklahoma City. And it's time for us to support our teachers, to support our staff, most importantly, to support our students. We become the bullwhip, and we crack it, and we get their attention.
All right, so that's a parent of a Morris student there, Mark Coots, and I think that, as you could see, very emotional in his comments. Mm-hmm. He cares because his student is his student. His student is his daughter. I mean, and so it's one of those things where you could hear the emotion in his voice. It's something that he's very passionate about, but you could also at the end there hear the clapping because the community, I think many of them feel the same way, that there's this fight going on and the only thing getting tore up is the schools. And there's nothing coming out of it, and they continue to be, third to last in the country? I think it was like
48th. 48th in the country.
Yeah.
We have some of the biggest cuts to education. I was looking up some stuff. Just in 2014, someone reported we had 23% budget cuts to education.
Yeah.
And we're still trying to cut more. I think I was looking, The Economist did something, they were saying 28.2%,
mm-hmm.
In Oklahoma.
Yeah.
It's getting to a point where it is affecting, the education system and the students that are coming in.
Yeah.
And where the quality of education is important, and I mean, it's our future.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that it's like what you would expect to be last to be cut or messed with or looked
Right.
at when you're having to, because let's be honest, let's not live in this fairy tale utopian world. We live in a world where when we work with budgets, we have to cut things.
Right.
Sometimes we have to cut things because there's just no money there. It doesn't just come out of the sky or fall into your lap when it's not there. It's just not there. So you have to make tough decisions. You have to make cuts. There are so many other things, though, that need to go on the list before education. Education needs to be dang near the bottom, if it isn't at the bottom, of the list of things that you mess with or cut or take money away from. Because as Liz said, it is our future, not to sound too much like Whitney Houston, God rest her soul. We love you, Whitney. We miss you. But no, it's one of those things where the children are our future, and it's something that it should be the last to cut. Unfortunately, we're seeing it one of the first things. I mean, every budget you've seen, and it's spanned party, president, whatever. You
Right.
can't just pick out one. They've cut JOM funding for years and years and years. It's not just one person or anything like that. Now we're seeing it almost completely wiped out. And we've covered that because it involves our tribal children. But, I mean, specifically, that's what I know of because that's what I've covered. But it's gone on with all of it. And another thing I wanted to share with everybody today on the show was comments from a teacher. This comes from a teacher, and earlier, when we first talked about it, it was said, teachers and pay raises and everything like that. I think the main thing I've gotten out of this from the teachers I've talked to and the teachers that we've interviewed and gotten content from is that they want people to stop thinking about it as teachers are wanting a pay raise. To the teachers I've talked to, and most of them I've seen on Twitter and everything like that, pay raise is third behind school funding and personnel and support staff taken care of. These teachers aren't just thinking about their checkbooks. It's something that they feel has been a misleading narrative that's been put out by the media that has covered it to this date. Because when you watch the TV and the story comes up on it, it goes, what do you see? Teachers want raises. They want some more money. The teachers are trying to get raises. School funding is at the very top of the list because of what Liz talked about, algebra books that have been there since 2008. And things change. There's certain textbooks that don't even have 9/11 in them. I mean, this
Right.
to me that's amazing
Well,
because
because there's some kids that are in the school system that weren't born.
yeah,
That
need to know
yeah.
that shaped very much so. From that moment that happened to the way this world reacted and the way this
Right.
world is still reacting to that very event. You can't have history without that. Maybe in American history now, it's in the top count on one hand list. You know what I
Right.
mean of changing events. So yeah, and it's school funding. They want that. They want people to stop thinking about it as teacher raises. And this was Keisha Hill. She's a teacher there at Morris, and she got up and spoke and let everybody know how the teachers were feeling.
In gathering information from all the vital stakeholders in this, I went to my students. Finally, they had questions. They had questions I couldn't answer. So this is what I told them, and I want to share this with you tonight because it's not about my paycheck. Don't let the news media lie to you. Do not fall for that. That's all they want to say when they get on there. You turn on the news and it's teachers asking for more money. No, we're not. We're not. So I want to share with you what I shared with my students. Hopefully that they would know this about me, and we've been in a couple of these situations before with the cheerleaders where we face danger. But I asked them, I said, guys, if there was a tornado coming through right now and we had to go over the safe room, who would be the last one in that door? I see some of my students in the chairs out in front of me tonight. I see some of your faces. And they looked at me and they said, you would, Miss Hill. And I said, that's right. Would I run out this door? Would I run out this back door right here and run over the safe room and leave y'all to fend for yourselves? No, you're right. I made that resolution a long time ago. My place is to be the last one in after the kids are safe. All right, guys, what if there's an active shooter coming down that hall right now? We practice all these drills all the time. there's a shooter coming down that hall. Am I going to run out that door for safety? I could. There's a door right there that goes to the outside. Am I going to run out to safety and leave you guys? Honestly, tell me what you think. And they all said, no, Miss Hill, I don't think you would. And I said, you're right. Because a long time ago, I made that resolution. Whatever happens, I could not live with myself if I did not put myself between you and that danger. So I need you guys to really think about who your teachers are. Who did you all hire? Who do you all trust with your children every day? You trust them with me, with all of the teachers of Morris Public Schools, to be the last one in the building, to be the one that gets between them and a bullet. And we would do it. I can promise you every one of us would do it. So why do you think I would walk out of that classroom and leave them sitting there alone if it was not for them? If they were not in danger, if their education was not in danger. So I know I'm out of time, so I just want to say this. The next time you hear that on the news, the next time someone says, those teachers just want a raise, those teachers are leaving their students because they want more money, please, for just a second. I'm not telling you how to judge that or what opinion to form, but for just a second, just think. With those same people that you trust to get between your child and danger, who are they? And I can promise you, there's one reason, and one reason alone, that any teacher across this state would leave their classroom and not have school, because we love school, it's what we do. There's one reason, and it's those students.
Can I just say, wow?
Yeah.
I mean, she was very passionate. I mean, you can hear the frustration in her voice.
Yeah, and that's the thing about that. It's so powerful to be able to share that with everyone, especially on a format like radio, is that you can hear everything come out of those comments, and and it makes you feel good about the fact that we're standing behind teachers, because these are the people that are so invested in their career, which is our kids. Their career is our kids, educating our kids. And that's what she was saying. That's a great point that she was making. We're the type of teachers here that are going to get between, heaven forbid, your child and a bullet, because that's the reality now, folks, that we're living in, is teachers have to contemplate that and even think about that. So why would they ever leave those kids if they would go to that measure? Mm-hmm. And it's just an important issue, and it's something that, obviously her and many of the other teachers, most of them in Oklahoma, feel strongly about, and more schools got behind it with their school board, and they're approved for 8 days of leave beginning on April 2nd. Anything past that, they'd have to, of course, add on to the end of the year.
Nancy, I was just wanting to get your thoughts on this impending teacher walkout. How this is affecting the youth that you provide services for.
Yeah, actually, some of them have talked about their personal concerns about missing school. How's that going to affect graduations, or even opportunities to get scholarships? There's, baseball and some other activities are going on right now that they may not have those opportunities to perform for scouts or recruiting agents and get scholarships that they're looking for. So I know there's a lot of concerns from the young people themselves about how this affects them, not only now in just completing this year of school, but in their future and the things that they're working on. I know some of the other ones that we reach out to, more of the youth who are at risk, not being in school leaves them idle and not having the things to do. And so we've actually talked about, just making our office available, which it always is. The youth can always come in and just hang out. We have different things that they can do. And so it'll be available for youth. I think we have about 20 that we could probably take at a time, 12 to 18 or 12 and up. So if young people need a place to go, we have internet, we have video games, we have laptops and computers that they can use if they're working on online classes. Those are things that they could come to our office and take advantage of. We even have a few snacks if they're hungry.
Do you have a ping pong table?
We don't, but if you've got one you want to donate, we'll take it.
I was like, oh my gosh, I'm there. Can I be youth?
Yes, right.
Snacks.
Oh, well, so, I think that rounds out the teacher discussion.
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll just have to see. And I'm glad you brought that up, Nancy, about the sports, because that was one thing I wanted to share at this board meeting. They said that spring sports at Morse won't be interrupted by any kind of walkout or anything like that. So they've kind of made and another thing that's really neat, and we're seeing it in a lot of communities, is a lot of these schools have set up places where the kids that rely on school for a lunch, and man, that that is very special to me. I mean, I really have a heart for those kids that need that, and that's part of why they go to school, is to get that nurse, and they're going to make things available for the kids in these communities where they can go get a lunch.
Right. We didn't get a chance to get into Aaron Griffith's part, but he did talk about that. He was concerned about the people that rely on the free and reduced lunch.
Mm-hmm.
What about?
Been a big concern.
Yeah, that is a big concern, he said. So that's something that we have to look at,
Absolutely. We'll keep you updated. So stay on MvskokeMedia.com.
Right. Yeah. But we're going to take just a quick break real quick, and we're going to come back with some community announcements. All right.
Who am I? Am I Indian? Just because I'm a girl from the West, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape. But then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
I started doing it when I was 11. I wanted to be just like my big brother. And some of my friends were already doing it. We got hooked fast. I just can't get enough. I'm Jacob, and I'm addicted to playing the drums.
There's lots of stuff that makes it cool to be Native. Doing meth isn't one of them. Find something better to do. Check out ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Okay, we're back, and I'm going to introduce someone, our intern with Mvskoke Media and Mvskoke Radio, Skylar Drennan.
Hello, how are you guys?
Good, how are
good,
you?
Skylar. I'm good. I was really kind of following closely that teacher thing, the teacher walkout, and I was really kind of paying attention to what you guys had chimed in on. It was something I've been following. I've got a few friends that are teachers, and that was the first thing when I asked them how they feel about it. It's not about them, it's about the students.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I saw you dabbing your eyes over there with the Kleenex.
I was starting to tear up.
Yes.
All right, so let's get into some of these community. We're going to start off with Skylar.
All right, here we go. Introduction. We're calling for graduate profiles. The Mvskoke News will feature 2018 Mvskoke Creek Nation High School, Military Technical School, and college graduates in the upcoming June 1st edition of Mvskoke News. Submit completed form accompanied with a digital photo via email to jmcbride@mvskokemedia.com no later than May 11th by 5 p.m.
We got the Indigenous Outreach going on this week at the Creek Nation Dome. Nightly services are at 7 o'clock. And they will go on through to Friday. Tonight, Pastor Fred Lowe. Then tomorrow, Pastor Richard Amador from Houston, Texas. And then Friday, Pastor Ellison Bennett, from Hidden Springs, Arizona. So that all happens nightly, the next 3 nights at 7 o'clock at the Creek Nation Dome.
Okay, Native American Student Services is presenting Scholarship of the Week. It's the American Indian Education Fund. Applications must be completed and postmarked by April 4th. Graduate and undergraduate scholarships are available. You can give a call at 928-523-8086.
Mvskoke Loan Fund is offering a free tax preparation. Guidelines: you must be a citizen of Mvskoke Creek Nation, an employee at Mvskoke Creek Nation, or from a household with a Mvskoke Creek citizen. Must have a total household income of $64,000 or less. It's by appointment only Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays from January 30th to April 12th. Free preparation assistance and e-filing of federal and state returns 1040, 1040A, and 1040EZ.
Awesome. The 2018 College Work Experience is now taking applications, and it's an internship program for college juniors, seniors, and grad students. You can apply through April 27th, and for more information, dial 918-732-7773.
Okay, all right, and we're going to
Put a
go
bow
into-
on this thing.
Yeah, I think so. It's been a good run.
It's been real, Liz.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me, Liz. This has been such a takeover, and I just love it. I'm so glad to be a part of the last week.
Right. I'm glad you came.
You did a great job.
You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mvskoke.